Alright everybody, this is Mr. Lathe again. Welcome back to another video on how to use a lathe. This is the second video. Last video we went over how to select RPMs and how to calculate them. This video we're going to go over choosing your feed rate and selecting it on the lathe and kind of how all of the power feed functions work to a lathe. Okay, so first off we're going to talk about what is a feed rate. Okay, all a feed rate is it is pretty much how much your tool is moving. Okay, so like this way or this way, the distance your tool is moving every time your part makes one rotation. Okay, so feed rate, it is typically measured in thousandths of inches per revolution. Okay, so that's what a feed rate is, how much your tool moves every time the part rotates once. Okay, so we got two types of feed rates. We have what's called a rough cut, and that's a really high feed rate. Okay, so if we're using steel, so pretty much we're just going to read this chart. It's based on your material type. So we're using steel. A rough cut feed rate would be 10 thousandths, 0.010, all the way up to 20 thousandths. What does rough cutting mean? That pretty much means we're removing material at a very rapid pace. We do not care about surface finish, so the surface is going to be very bumpy. Okay, and we don't really care about accuracy. So rough cutting is not very accurate. It has a poor surface finish. The advantage of rough cutting is it removes material quickly and it saves on time. Okay, so that's rough cutting. Finish cutting for steel is anywhere from 0.003 or 3 thousandths of an inch all the way up to 0.01 or 10 thousandths of an inch. Okay, so notice that's a smaller number than these numbers. This is a range of numbers. It's not an exact science. You kind of got to do it maybe by trial and error. Maybe you selected 5 thousandths and your part was still really rough. Okay, you would then maybe go down to 3 thousandths. If you were finish cutting, that could maybe get you a smoother surface finish. So first what you need to do, figure out, are you rough cutting or finish cutting? Okay, so moving to our process sheet on our first project, the two-step, we're gonna, so we already did this step off camera. We cut our material out using the horizontal bandsaw. We are now on operation 30. Mount the stock in a 3-jaw chuck with 2.5 inches of material out of the jaws. Face off end, clean up. Okay, over here in the speeds/feeds columns, it gives us a feed rate 3 thousandths all the way up to 10 thousandths. So if I look at my chart, 3 thousandths to 10 thousandths, we are finished cutting. Okay, so how we select our feed rate is we're going to use our gearbox. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to chuck up my part here. So I'm going to put it in the chuck. I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to measure from the furthest part of the chuck, and I'm going to go to 2.5 inches. And by golly, that was a very lucky guess. Okay, it's pretty much right on. So I'm going to take my chuck key and I'm going to, and this is kind of hard to do one-handed. Whoops. Find the bolt hole for the chuck key and you're going to tighten this up using the chuck key. Okay, get it nice and tight. We've already selected our speed or RPMs in the previous video, so now we need to select feed rate. Okay, so we want 3 thousandths to 10 thousandths. We're going to use this gearbox here. Okay, and what I'm going to tell you is we're going to choose 3 thousandths. That's going to give us the smoothest surface finish, the best quality part possible. Okay, so how this chart works, the feed rate chart, is on the top of the chart it says threads per inch, feeds in thousandths. Okay, so in each square here there's two sets of numbers. For example, in this square we have a number 8 and we have 0.0421. The number 8, that's the top number, that is threads per inch. We are currently not making threads. We do not care about threads per inch, so completely ignore the top numbers unless you are threading. The bottom number, that is feeds in thousandths. That's what we care about, okay? So how much our tool's moving every time our part is rotating once. So just a pro tip, I'm pretty lazy. I'm sure most of you are lazy. What we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of just refer to one column on this chart, okay? You can use the whole chart if you need to, but what I've found is this first column here, it pretty much has any feed rate I might ever need, okay? I got higher feed rates like 0.021 or close to 20 thousandths. That would be a rough cutting feed rate. Or all the way down here, I got 0.002. That's a finish cutting feed rate, okay? It's very close to 3 thousandths. So does it need to be exactly the number? No, it's not an exact science. Find something that's close and work with it, okay? So the feed rate I said we wanted to use was 0.003. I found 0.0026 on my chart. That is very close. So we're gonna use this one, okay? So what that means is I gotta move this tumbler gear right here to this hole, okay? Because it's in line with this column on the chart. So I gotta move this tumbler gear to this hole, and then this box or number, the 0.026, that is in row E. So I gotta move this gear to letter E right here, okay? So I'm gonna do that off camera. All you do is you pull these out, and it's a little finesse. You move them side to side, get in line with the hole, and then you lift it up, okay? So I'm gonna do that off camera. All right, so I selected my gears. Like I said, we're at 3 thousandths or 0.0026, very close to 3 thousandths. We're in this column, so I put my tumbler gear, right tumbler gear in this, the hole for this column, and then I put my left tumbler gear in letter E because we're in row E, okay? So we selected our gears. Our part is chucked up, okay? Next thing we need to do, let's bring our carriage a little closer to our part, okay? So we wanna get our cutting tool fairly close to our part, but not so close we're gonna crash into anything, okay? Now, we're gonna kind of mess with all the other feed rate mechanisms, okay? So what we were doing is it's called facing, okay? We're cutting off the face of our part. So there's two main processes we can do on a lathe. We have facing, okay? You're machining the end of your part. Ultimately, that changes the length of your part. And then if we're machining on the side of our part, that's called turning. We're changing the diameter of our part, okay? So like the width or the diameter of the cylinder, okay? So that's turning. Facing, what we wanna do is we are going to do that, we're gonna be using our cross slide, okay? So we need to figure out how do we power our cross slide, okay? So on a self-bend lathe, it is right here, we have our feed selection lever, okay? So if I move that, in the middle hole, that is neutral, that's nothing, okay? The bottom hole powers your cross slide. The top hole powers our carriage, okay? So bottom hole is if we move our tool forward or backwards. The top hole powers our carriage. We wanna move our tool left or right. So we're facing, we wanna use our cross slide, so I'm gonna move this to the bottom hole, okay? And it might be a little finicky to do, and I can't really do this one-handed, so I'm gonna do it off camera. All right, selected the cross slide, that's what we wanna power. I'm gonna turn my lathe on, okay? I'm gonna hit start, forward. The lathe is spinning. We already selected the 270 RPM in our previous video. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to engage the clutch, okay? And this cross slide, it is going lefty-loosey, okay? It's moving by itself, so I lift it up on my clutch lever. This is moving lefty-loosey. That is not really how we want it to move, okay? We're doing what's called facing, okay? So how we actually move this the other way, righty-tighty, is I'm gonna disengage my clutch, okay? So put that lever down, that will stop this moving. Turn the lathe off. And then I gotta move this lever, which is called your feed reverse lever. We want this to go righty-tighty, okay? Because we want our tool to travel that way. We were traveling this way, we want our tool to travel that way. So I'm going to put this lever down. That should reverse. That should reverse my cross slide. So I'm going to lift this up. See, now it is going righty-tighty, okay? So that's how you reverse your feed direction. If it's going the wrong way, you don't want it to move, that's what you do, okay? So what we're gonna do next, sometimes this doesn't want to stop moving, okay? I'm gonna move this. I'll show you how the carriage works quick. Move that to the top hole. If I engage my clutch, now it's kind of hard to see, we're on a really slow feed rate. Now my carriage is moving, okay? If I wanted my carriage to move lefty-loosey or to the left, okay, I would reverse that lever once again. So that is how we use power feed, okay?